and welcome to the grind. I'm your host, Mike. I should say, myself and Aaron, we are at Top Golf Nashville, the event that we do across the country. I'm supposed to be presenting in about 10 minutes, so we're going to go through fast today. But we have a fast subject because we're going to talk about the CMS updates that were released just this past week. So what do we have? Well, before we jump into that, of course, today is April 7th. We're in Nashville, Tennessee, beautiful city. Did not know before I came here the first time, it was the bachelorette capital of the world. So, yeah, that was a surprise to me. A little taken back by that. And I agree, time zones, I'm against time zones as well because it messes me up all the time. So I apologize. But yeah, here we are. We're kicking it off. But if you're in these areas, definitely check it out. Pennsylvania, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio. The next one's coming up. Obviously, I think that's Philadelphia and Bridgeville, the suburb. But the one in May will be in our backyard. So definitely check that out. We'll have a bunch of staff there. If you can make it there, please do. We'd love to see you. But let's talk about what CMS did last week. So they came out with the final rule. Now, mind you, their final rule is like Garth Brooks' Final Four, which happened 19 times. So there'll probably be another final rule again after this, more than likely. It may not affect this, but there's typically final rules happen all through the year. Because you have to remember that the CMS doesn't just dictate what we do, it's also providers, networks, everything else. So the final rule is 219 pages, and we only had that much of it, just a small portion, because there's so much else going on. But for us, the agents, 48-hour wait for scope of appointment will be gone. They're going to remove that, and you just have to present the scope, not at the beginning of the appointment, only before you talk about benefits. So if you're having a conversation, never get to the point where you're going to talk about benefits, you technically don't need a scope. Now, of course, use your best judgment, because I always taught I'd rather have a scope and not need it than the opposite. Than, need a scope and then not have one. So I still say do a scope if you can, but they're not necessary at the beginning of the appointment anymore or 48 hours in advance. So kudos to us. Disclaimers no longer at the beginning. You had that disclaimer at the very beginning of the appointment. Now, again, just like the scope has to be done at the beginning of the appointment, and the SHIP language is out. So you don't have to say, hey, you should call SHIP, because I think they finally realized that SHIP volunteers are just exactly that, volunteers, and there's no guarantee of accuracy or accountability on their advice. So that's gone. I'm all for that. I appreciate the SHIP program, but let's face it, it's only as good as the people you talk to, and there's no accountability. So I'm all for having some guardrails there that, they're a good secondary, maybe third, but yeah, I'm not too crazy about them. And excellent question. All this happens, I believe 99% of this will occur in AEP this year. So AEP 2027, we always say AEP for the following year because it's 2027 benefits. So not till October. I think there was language about having the 48-hour start sooner, but I haven't seen it with my eyes, so I'm not 100% sure. So, but I would just say plan on October this taking effect. Someone else told me they thought it was June for the 48-hour scope being gone. Again, I looked, didn't see it, but if you see it, let me know. Shoot me an email. Definitely curious on that. So some more things happened. 12-hour wait. If you're doing seminars between educational and sales is gone. You could do one right after the other. So you can do an educational event, and if people want to hang out and enroll, you could say absolutely. You just have to let them know that it is switching over and give them the option to leave. So you can't go lock the doors and trap them in and say you can't leave until you sign up. That's bad. That's also kidnapping, I believe. So don't do that. But you could say, hey, if you want to stay and look at your options and enroll, just take care of your enrollments now. We could do that. Just have to have a slight break. And you can collect SOAs at educational events as well. So you're going to be able to do an educational event and then have scopes on hand for people to take action and, just go ahead and maybe meet them right after, maybe meet them a couple days. I believe the scope of appointment is good for 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. But you'll see that you'll be able to just jumpstart, we'll just say that word, jumpstart the process in the educational event. All right, you can use absolute superlatives. You could say this is the best plan for you. Yeah, without supporting documentation. This is the first time I've seen this since these rules ever came out. So you can say this is the best plan, this is the number one plan in the market that I've seen. Again, I would still be cautious on this because, for you can still use it sparingly, but don't go over the top with the absolute superlatives. But you can't use them now. Call recordings from 6 years, sorry, from 10 to 6 years. And from what I read, from years 4 to 6, you only need the transcript. I don't believe you need the actual audio recording anymore. But again, I'll double check that. But so 10 years down to 6. And again, all this starts October of this year. Also, those flex cards we all, talk about, the grocery and get this and get that. They're putting more guardrails in place to prevent misuse. So there'll be point of sale measures in place that if they try and use it and gets declined, that should happen more often. So the preventing misuse of people trying to buy things they're not supposed to with the flex cards. They see there's some rampant misuse of those, so they're putting that in place. What that's going to look like, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to vary per carrier. I don't know if it's going to be a standard CMS thing, but that's something that will be enacted. So yeah, same Kyla. Superlative was a surprise to me, but it makes sense. This is the number one plan my clients are enrolling. That's something you could say that's, not saying it's the number one plan. You say it's the most popular plan that you offer. So there's some leeway there, but again, use it sparingly. All right. One thing we didn't see is the SEP for provider changes. And it's funny, Aaron and I talked about this when we were driving to Top Golf this morning. And I think that the carriers are like, look, it's too hard to maintain that network. When you have a vast network of doctors and hospitals and you're trying to maintain all that, I think that was some pushback there. This is my speculation, but there was no mention of having an SEP for that. I believe California has one in place for the state, if I'm not mistaken. But for the rest of the country, if their doctor or provider leaves mid-year, unfortunately, they cannot leave the plan mid-year. Will that change? Maybe. I hope it does, because if you have a primary doctor that your client's seen for the past 20 years and they want to keep them and they leave, that can create a definite upset in their care and some stressors as well. So I hope that changes. But again, there's no mention of that. So I think they teased it, but didn't go through. Also, some star rating changes. Maybe it doesn't affect you so much, but it can affect the star ratings we see being released over the next few years. And that 11 measures have been removed. So going less administrative and more clinical outcomes and patient experiences, which is the way it should be, right? I mean, obviously, admin processes are important to have, continuity of care, but really comes to the clinical outcomes and experiences. So hopefully you'll see that improve your clients working through the plan and their providers. So that has been changing. And again, you may see some 5-star plans fall down to 4, may see some 4s go up to 5, depending on these things. We'll wait and see what happens. Again, we have no control over that. All right, this just happened. And CMS earlier this year released that they were going to propose that there's this 0.09% increase in MA plans, which is horrible, right? Because that basically doesn't give any more room for MA plans to do anything. But they just announced that it will actually be 2.48%, which is half as much as it was last year, but they needed the boost with the higher level of utilization and the shrinking, we saw shrinking of plans. Hopefully this jumpstarts it back, and this hopefully opens up the door a little bit for paying commissions again. Now, there was no talk of commissions in the report. So that's the number one question I've been getting and talking to agents and others is, what are they going to do with commissions? Well, CMS sets the bar. They don't set the floor because they're like, hey, this is the max you could pay. But when it comes to what you're actually going to earn, CMS is like, we're free and clear of that. Carriers can pay whatever they want. Another reason why ancillary is so important. I know I hammer on ancillary a lot, but this is a huge reason why you should. So yes, I agree. Providers leaving mid-year should be on there. But again, it's CMS. What I love about working with any government agency is you can be the best or worst at your job. You have no competition. You can be incompetent and do it because who are you going to complain to, right? CMS, they're the final say in all this stuff. Now, if you look at the Federal Register link, which I'll send out, you could see all the comments that came with it and the CMS responses. So that was interesting to skim through. I would say if you're looking through that registry, I would search agents, search commissions, which you probably won't find anything. You can search 48-hour rule. So search your keywords because again, there's 219 pages in that final rule because a lot of it has to do with Part D plans and provider relations and coding certain things and changing this that aren't applicable to our everyday lives of taking care of our clients. That's more for the clinical side of things. So, but I'd love to see something about commissions and saying, hey, you have to pay at least 50% of commission for enrollment or something like that. I don't think CMS is going to do that. I think CMS is going to be like, look, we don't want to get in the weeds of that. We've got enough on our plates. Whatever you make, you make. So, but again, 2.48%, it's not the best we've seen, not the worst, but it's definitely better than 0.09. So hopefully we'll see some decent plans this year and less SEPs or SARs, excuse me, service area reductions. Again, if you haven't seen the videos yet, we are doing live recordings, not this Friday because I'll be traveling back from Knoxville, Tennessee. I have a 9-hour drive. So if you're bored and want to text me, feel free because I'll be in the car or call me. I shouldn't text and drive. I realize that. But Steve and I are going to record one Thursday. So watch for that. We're going to talk about another case. Last week, it hasn't been posted yet, but we talked about an annuity with a long-term care benefit that actually had some underwriting. And you could see, if long-term care underwriting's here, very high, the annuity underwriting was way down here. So if you're like, my clients have some assets and they have some money they want to protect in case they do go long-term care, there are some options out there. So again, if you're hearing a lot of background noise, I'm sitting at Top Golf. So what do we do with all this information? Well, hopefully MA plans should come back stronger than they have been, at least fewer SARs. And will commissions come back? Hopefully with the increase of this 2.48%, we'll see some commissions start to come back. Also, you should have more streamlined things. Now, one thing to consider, the 48-hour rule goes away, right? We're all like, success, hurrah, pumping our fists in the air, like in, what movie was that with the dude? Big Lebowski. Yes. I love that meme or that GIF. But remember, it also helps the call centers. So your competition that's out there spending millions of dollars in ads and everything else got a break as well. So just be mindful that your job got easier, but it got easier for all the people, including call centers that a lot of us are like, are hesitant on and are very cautious of. So just be mindful of that. Will the recording be available? I'm going to send it out. Absolutely. Watch your post email. Come be a constant contact, but I will send out the post email. The $40 rule, I didn't see anything about that, but I didn't look either, to be honest. So the $40 rule being that's the max you can spend per person. I haven't seen any change in that, but again, I didn't look, so I apologize. So if you find that, again, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. It's mgatorna, I think that's how you say it, at gordonmarketing.com. There's my email address. Feel free to send me your questions, comments, concerns, threats, promises. I actually have to go present for 2 minutes at Top Golf because Aaron's covering for me at the moment. But any last comments? Again, I'm sorry this is a quick one, but I thought I had till noon Central Time, and then it was 11 Central Time. So I got kind of thrown around. So I called through it. I'm going to type it all out, send it all out. I'll send a link to the register as well, so you have a copy of that. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns? That's promised. I appreciate you all being here and letting me fly through this as fast as humanly possible. But yeah, I think it's good stuff. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you need more, I posted on LinkedIn as well. So if you're not friends with me on LinkedIn, I'm a pretty fun guy. Just kidding. It's LinkedIn. It's not that exciting. But feel free to friend me on there. Feel free to drop me an email. Watch for the post email. If you don't get it, send me an email. Say, hey, I didn't get the post email. My goal is to send it out tomorrow morning after I wake up and, my horrible sleep in the hotel room. But thank you so much for being part of this. I think I stopped recording. Oh, nope, I didn't.